Hey guys, VaulSC, how you going? Thanks for checking out the YouTube video as usual. Today we're going to do something a little bit special. Try and imagine that you're sitting in a room surrounded by other Infinity players and perhaps you're overhearing a conversation between maybe some people who are quite new, some novice Infinity players if you will, and there's some talk about, oh, this guy's got martial arts level 1, he's got a high CC stat, he's pretty good at close combat, oh, but this guy's MA2, and this guy's MA3, and this guy's got Berserk, and this guy's got this, and this guy's got that. And then suddenly somebody asks, well, who's the best? Who is the best at close combat in the game of Infinity? Because we can quite easily imagine some sort of, Mortal Kombat tournament where they all enter and only one person leaves, and there's this power ranking, right, of, worst to best, and somebody's got to be at the top of that. So who is it? Who is the best close combat model in the entire game of Infinity? Well, bad news. Sadly, there is no such power ranking because that question can't really be answered, and the reason why is that Infinity is a game that primarily involves shooting. It also involves cyber war and objective grabbing and espionage and resource management and timing and positioning, and close combat is a bit of an afterthought. Now, I love close combat. You guys watch my YouTube videos, you know that I get models into close combat as much as anybody else. I absolutely love it. But again, there's that niggling factor of, who would be on top? Like, who do we like the most as a CC specialist? I mean, it's not like Aristia where everybody's in this little gladiatorial combat ring. There are so many different ways of getting into close combat and circumstances under which close combat occurs. However, there is one way we can do it though, and that's to do it a little bit like the way that the Grammys do it, or the Oscars do it, and that's to have an awards ceremony where there are categories and we can recognize a lot of different kinds of close combat specialists, and that way we can do what, again, the Grammys and the Oscars do, and that is to recognize more people, because otherwise, you pick number one and then there's all these other people below it who are brilliant at close combat and Infinity, and we have to, not recognize them. Just want to pause the video a moment and say that I know what you guys are thinking. This is quite a clickbaity video, and I also know that if I was to go onto YouTube and constantly post videos where it's top 5 best this, top 5 worst factions, you'll never believe what happened when I got into close combat with this person. It's going to shock you what happened next. I'm not going to post videos like that, even though maybe it would help me, but that's not what I'm about. I'm about producing the content. Except for today, I've just had a really long holiday, and it's my first day back tomorrow, so I'm just going to cut loose a little bit, have a bit of fun. To be honest, some of my other YouTube videos, they're a little bit low energy, they're a little bit sterile, they're a little bit lifeless. Let's enjoy ourselves and do a 10 category list of best close combat unit in the game of Infinity. Let's enjoy it. Alright, I'm excited. Alright. Our first category for close combat in the game of Infinity is going to be about the best duelist. Can we find the best duelist in this game? We're going to define that as most likely to win face-to-face rolls when both models start the order in base-to-base contact. So you can't use surprise attack for this. You're starting the order with your model already in contact with their model. So your nominee for this category is not really going to benefit from impersonation or marker state. And remember, they have to win a face-to-face roll, so forget about using Berserk. If you show up to a fencing match, a sword fight, with a whole bunch of grenades strapped under your vest and you explode, it's not really a win, is it? So what we're thinking about is you're left standing, the other guy's not, and if it's a draw after the first round, more orders are being spent infinitely until somebody wins. Alright, so best duelist, very important category here. So what we're looking for here is who has martial arts ability, because martial arts level 1 is going to subtract 3 from their stats. MA2 is really just going to make you hit harder, so that's not really a biggie for winning the face-to-face roll. Martial arts level 3 is really where it's at though, because you get +3, they get -3. That's going to shift the weight, the odds of winning the face-to-face roll severely in your favor. Martial arts level 4 is really useful when you're beating up on somebody a lot weaker. But let me put it this way. If you're CC 20 and they're CC 10, you're obviously going to win the face-to-face roll, but if you have 2 dice to roll with martial arts level 4, you're going to force them to pass Marama save, so it's better in that situation. But if you're CC 20 and they're also CC 20, and they have, say, a martial arts ability like MA1 or MA3, and you're trying to use MA4, well, although you got 2 dice, their stats are going to go way up, yours are going to go down, and whatever they roll, they're going to actually have a bonus to their dice. So let's say they're MA20, and sorry, they're CC20, and then they go up to 23, and you go down to 17, but you got 2 dice, and they happen to roll like a 10, they're still getting, you know, +3 to their roll. So both of your dice actually have to be above, say, a 13, and they can't be, you know, too far above, like 17, because you got reduced. So it's just not really going to work if you use MA4. And MA5 is a bit gimmicky. It's really more for a rare situation where you're in combat with multiple enemies. So there are a lot of models in the game with MA3. So what's really going to matter is who has the highest close combat stat in the game. Well, there's tons of people with close combat stat of 23, which is just massive. If you're CC 23 and MA3, you're a god in close combat. There are a few people with CC 24. I'm thinking of, I think the Umbra Samaritan, I think Achilles, I think the Oniwaban, but there are only 2 people, 2 nominees, who have CC 25, which is the highest CC stat in the game, and the ability to use martial arts, 3, which is going to be the key for this best duelist strategy. So we're going to hit the drum roll. There's the drum roll. And the nominee, the winner, is Miyamoto Musashi. And the reason why Miyamoto Musashi just barely ekes it out over Shinobu, even though they have the same stats, is the tiebreaker. So you imagine a situation where Miyamoto crits, well, it's all over. Shinobu crits, she's got a molar filament, it's all over. It doesn't matter about his NWI. But in the situations where one of them wins, but not with a crit, then it does come down to what happens with their weapons, right? So if Shinobu gets like a 10 and Musashi gets a 9, then Shinobu wins, but if Musashi then rolls a 13 plus to beat the monofilament weapon, he lives and they fight another round. But if Shinobu loses its explosive sword, and she's got to tank his physical stat 3 times in a row, otherwise she's dead. So it's super close, but Miyamoto Musashi is your winner for the best duelist in Infinity, hands down, in that criteria, in that specific situation. Alright, let's move on to category 2. Best striker, most likely to get into combat with target and destroy it. So what this category is all about is us trying to think about and find out which model in the game it's most difficult to avoid dying to in close combat. If this particular nominee wants to get into close combat with you and destroy you, it has a higher chance of doing that than anything else in the game. So there are a few, possibilities here. You might need speed, getting from your deployment zone to their deployment zone. You might need some sort of infiltration, maybe superior infiltration. You might need marker state. You might need smoke grenades. You might need eclipse grenades. You might need to drop down next to them with airborne deployment. But there's one way to get into close combat more reliably than anything else I can possibly think of, and that is impersonation state. And who is the best at killing things with impersonation? Well, there's only one guy, and that is Hussein Al-Jabal. So he is the king of the assassinating, like from right next to you, deploys next to the deployment zone, or even makes a willpower check to get you right in the corner, and then he comes and hits you. Obviously, the Specular Killer can do that, and any old FIDE can do that, but this guy has the martial arts level 4. Usually he's picking on a weaker target, so he can get away with it. He can use MA3 if you happen to be good at close combat, and then he's got that viral sword. So that viral sword has a huge chance of getting you. Even if he doesn't crit, it's gonna be more likely to kill you than, say, a monofilament is if it doesn't crit. And obviously, the rest of the FIDEs just don't have the amazing prowess that Hussein Al-Jabal does. So he is the winner of the best striker category. Number 3, most destructive, likeliest to cause catastrophic damage in face-to-face rolls. So this is a special category that isn't really about winning the face-to-face roll. It's not really about the stats, so to speak. It's about the damage and the ability to hit. So our nominees have to be able to actually deliver. They have got to be able to get into close combat. They've got to be able to actually score a hit on the enemy, and they've got to make sure the enemy is less likely to fail the armor saves. So as you can probably guess, this is a category that I've come up with specifically for people that have Berserk, because we've got to give them some recognition. Berserk is just such a destructive thing in Infinity for anybody that gets into close combat, because it turns it into a normal roll, alright? So I've actually made a mistake, as you can see. I've already sort of bungled this award ceremony, and I've done a Steve Harvey or whatever his name, and I've picked up the wrong card, because this actually says face-to-face rolls, and we're going to be thinking about Berserk. However, the winner of this category is amazing in face-to-face rolls as well, so let's just give it to him. Out of all of the Berserk champs, it's going to be Nico Oyama. So this guy is close combat 24, and he's got martial arts level 3, which takes him up to CC 27 and reduces them by 3 if it's a face-to-face roll. So he's already just amazing. You put him in a direct duel against Musashi, and he's only an underdog by 1 point. But the thing that makes this guy our winner of the destruction category is that if he then plants a Berserk, he can do it on top of the martial arts level 3. So that takes him from CC 27 to CC 33, I think. So he's adding 13 to his dice, so if he rolls a 7 plus on a d20, he just crits you. So the chances of this guy causing damage is higher than the chances that any other model has, if you look at it that way. It's a bit of a stretch, but I also want to recognize Nico for another reason. Let's say that he's locked in combat with Musashi, our winner of the first duelist category. And what's happened is Nico has spent the order moving into close combat with Musashi. Musashi is next to act. He's got to declare his ARO, and that means Musashi has to choose between MA4, which gives him 2 dice, or MA3, which is the +3, -3. If he acts first and goes, okay, well, I'm going for MA3, sure, Nico can go, right, well, I'm feeling lucky, I'm an underdog by 1, I can try it and kill you. You know, he might even tank the armor saves. Nico's got 2 wounds and a bit of armor. Or Nico can go for a Berserk, which will just wipe out Musashi. Musashi's you know, likely to get a hit and probably kill Nico, but it's not assured. Nico can just like tank all the armor saves. That's possible. So there's that. But if Musashi expects the Berserk and he's just predicting Berserk and goes for martial arts level 4 and throws 2 dice, Nico can actually go, well, I'm going to come in with MA3, seeing what you did there, and then suddenly Nico's going up to CC 27, Musashi's coming down to CC 22, and they're both rolling. Musashi's got 2 dice, adding +2 to each dice, but Nico's adding +7 to his dice. So let's say Musashi rolls, I don't know, a 4 and a 14, and Nico rolls a 10. Well, Nico actually wins that and hits him in the face with a massive power sword of explosions. So this is a really, really powerful close combat guy in this game, and I wanted to give him some recognition. He's not the winner of the best duelist category because Musashi is just slightly better at winning that sort of having a go, and they've both got 2 wounds effectively, but he is the winner of most destructive in my opinion. Best all-rounder. Best for a combination of all CC criteria categories. So all the ones we're talking about today, this guy's going to be like the king. Almost the king of everything. Like he's coming in second or third in so many different spots, and he's also good at non-CC rolls, right? So let's look at some nominations for this. And again, the reason why we're doing this category is we need to recognize the fact that it's very rarely good enough to be just good at close combat. If you have a model that can only do close combat and is not good at anything else, it's going to be terrible. Imagine a Fusilier, a 10-point Fusilier. Let's say we give him close combat 23 and MA3, but we increase his points cost by 5. Nobody would ever take that model. It'd be an awful model. You get a Dachiratsu Witch Soldier for 14 points, who's basically that good in close combat, almost, but also has smoke grenades and mimetism and blah, 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 blah. You can get a Krakot Renegade for 15 points with a submachine gun who is amazing in close combat. So just being at close combat is not enough. But if you have other things, whether it's smoke, chain rifle, you know, good shooting, all this other stuff, being able to score, being a specialist, that's really important as well. So we go through all of the other people. Musashi, yep, he's got a flash pulse as well, really good at that. Chain rifle, in fact, he uses those more than he actually uses his swords in a lot of games. You look at a character like Joan of Arc, another nominee for this. She's got inspiring leadership, she's got an amazing gun, she's got the armor, she can be a lieutenant, she's really powerful there. But at the end of the day, with no other criteria there, this award has to go to Achilles. It has to. It has to. We're not considering points, are we? So Achilles he's basically coming in like third or fourth tied, you know, for the best duelist categories, who narrowly missed out on that. Most destructive, he's definitely top 5, top 10 underneath some of those berserking people for most destructive, because he's going to win most face-to-face rolls, and he's got that explosive sword, and he's fucking physical 15. So this guy's amazing, but not only is he in close combat isn't one of the better things that he does. He's an ARO god. He is an attacking, shooting god. He dodges like crazy. He's just amazing at so many things. He's got a nanopulsar. He can be your lieutenant. So I would feel remiss if I didn't include Achilles somewhere in this award ceremony, because he's got to get something. Look, he's even got a Morat head as a reward. Look at that. Okay. Best on budget. Now, this is an important one to recognize, because so far we're talking about models that cost 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 points, right? So we're talking about massively invested troopers, but there are so many models in this game which perform amazingly well, even though they cost a pittance. So I'm thinking of nominees such as the Morlock, the Datrager Wit Soldier, the Jaguar, guys like this who just barely cost anything. They're still providing smoke grenades, they're still providing chain rifles and stuff like that. But if you get into close combat with them, woof, I mean, even guys like Shinobu, Musashi, Al-Jabal, they can die to a model that costs less than 15 points. That's just how it is. So what we're going to look at next is the best value for money when it comes to close combat. And having carefully looked at the nominees, I'm actually going to give this one to the Galwegian. The Galwegian, 6 points for a guy who has CC 20-something and Berserk. I almost thought about giving it to the Morlock, because the Morlock can be purchased for, you know, an equal 6 points. It's got some really cool stuff with Metachemistry 1, and it's got a little bit of martial arts there, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But nothing scares people more than the Galwegian that throws a smoke grenade and gets into close combat with you, because you've got a 6-point model trading up. With the Morlock, there are ways of staving it off. You might have somebody with MSV that can just shoot it, and it might only last 1 round, or maybe a mine goes off or whatever, and it doesn't really get the payload of close combat hits in there. But the Galwegian, gets in there, swings, you can't do anything about it. Doesn't matter if you dodge, doesn't matter if you beat him in close combat, doesn't matter if you chain rifle him. He's going to get a hit, and you are going to have to take an armor save, and he achieved that for 6 points, so wins the category. Benefits most from close combat. The unit that thrives most on close combat relative to the other roles it can carry out. Now, I wanted to bring this one in because there are some models in the game that just skyrocket in value when they get into close combat. I'll give you some examples. In fact, I'll give you the converse example first. Think of the Cutter. That's a Pano tag that has BS15, TO camo, 3 wounds, armor 8. But can't fight in close combat. You're talking about a 100-point model that it just shreds, it just annihilates at range. But as soon as it actually makes it base-to-base with an enemy trooper, its value goes from that sky-high 100-point kind of value to being absolute rubbish, absolute garbage. Whereas you look at a model like Agaki, who's a nominee for this category, who is 4 points, but if it touches you and survives, then it's a CC19 model that can just keep attacking you, and it even explodes if you kill it. So the Gaki is a model that, you know, its stock just goes massively up. It's worth it. You have to pay 4 points for it, but imagine how many points you'd have to pay for it if it started the game in close combat with an enemy trooper. Imagine if you could just deploy it base to base with somebody in their deployment zone and just attack. It would be so likely to kill so many 1-wound models, you'd have to price it at 30, 40 points, right? Because its chances of killing something would be so high. Maybe not 40 points, but up there in the range of things like Impersonate and so on. So what are the models that just really explode in value when that happens. Well, the Gaki is one of them. The reason why the Gaki doesn't actually win this this nomination, well, it doesn't win the award, is because at CC19 with no martial arts stats, a lot of the time he just whiffs and loses to models that you know, just have an average CC stat and they kill him with a knife and he doesn't explode. So the winner of this category, the guy that really just skyrockets in value, is the Umbra Samaritan. Let's talk about why. So even though this guy has other things he can do, even though you can get 40 points out of him if he's just firing a Spitfire, he doesn't really, you know, he's not really the best shooting a Spitfire model in the game. And he's got super jump to get into position, but that's just not really his ultimate goal. If this guy gets into close combat with you, the Prithian ability allows you to potentially roll 2 dice, and every time you get a wound, his wounds go up. So he withdraws wounds from their corpse, he vampires them up, and he becomes stronger. So if you can imagine a situation where he super jumps off a roof, he lands into close combat with you, you dodge, you attack back with your flailing arms and panic, he gets 2 hits on you, you fail your saves, maybe one of those hits was a crit, and then he goes from 1 wound plus NWI to 3 wounds plus NWI. And at that point, his value basically doubles. If I had to pay double points for a guy that started with 3 wounds NWI, I probably would, because at that point you are almost symbiomate's level of broken. You can come around the following corner after that, eating chain mine after crazy koala after combi rifle hit, and you're living and you're getting into close combat again and killing more people. So that is a bit nuts. This guy is hard to use, but if you can find the right spots to get into close combat, it's worth it. Also, if you are in a situation where there's an enemy 6 inches away and to get into close combat, you're having to take an arrow from 3 different combi rifles, it's still worth doing, because even though you may take 2 wounds at the end of that order, you might also inflict 1 or 2 wounds at the end of that order. So the net result is accounted for and calculated at the end, in which case he might not die and he might be in close combat where he can just keep going and keep doing that. So this guy's just nuts when he gets there. Best Mass Murderer. Most effective at eliminating multiple opponents in CC over the course of a game. So this is not Best Duelist where you're already in close combat with them and after you've killed them it's over. This is about eliminating the target, surviving, finding another target, killing that, and continuing to kill them. So our previous winner would definitely be a nominee for that. You've got that Umbra Samaritan in there going in and sweeping it, basically, and killing these people. The reason I feel like the Samaritan won't really win this category is that as he's doing so, a flash pulse blinding him will shut him down, because if he's not dodging and he's attacking in close combat, he's probably going to get hit by that. Stun rounds will shut him down, for example. EM weaponry that might isolate him, again, going to be a problem. He's also got no smoke grenades, and he's got no marker state, so finding more models around him can be really, really difficult. My other nominee for this is actually Algebel again, because he can start in a position where he gets straight into close combat with you, or throw a smoke grenade around the corner, or spec fire it and kill you, and then maybe go into marker state and kill somebody else and keep going and just work his way around your deployment zone. That doesn't happen very often, but I've seen so many games where he gets 2 or 3 really important kills and starts that mass murdering. But we are going to give the award for Best Mass Murderer to Shinobu Kitsune. And this is a bit of a controversial one, because you may be thinking, well, I mean, all the stuff that she can do, Algebel can do that as well. And I'll just talk about why she just edges it out, and it's kind of close. So she can infiltrate halfway through, or she can superior deploy if she wants, which is gonna generally be enough for you to get there. She can throw smoke grenades. She's got a very good fizz stat for getting that down. She's got stealth. That's great. She can use marker state to get into close combat. If she does get into close combat with you, she's got an even better chance of killing you in most cases than Algebel does. And the thing about her is that if it's a tag, if it's a line trooper, it doesn't matter. Monofilament's just going to kill you. Whereas Algebel, there are going to be some cases where he doesn't actually get the job done. People that have bioimmunity maybe, or a tag with armor, 10 and 3 wounds, armor 9, armor 8, those kind of tags, the sword might kind of stick in the armor plating for a bit and you might be stuck there. Whereas Shinobu, she's just going to eliminate most of those targets, isn't she? The other reason why I feel like giving this to Shinobu is that sometimes you have to move into close combat outside of a smoke template and take a flash pulse or a combi rifle as you do so. And in that regard, she's just a bit better than Aljabella's because of her TO camo. She's going to impose a -6 penalty. She's got a chance of them whiffing the shot, whereas Aljabel doesn't. If it's a situation where she has to actually pass a dodge check, just as she gets behind cover, for example, Aljabel is not going to succeed as often as she does because, again, that TO camo backing her physical stats up. So, come on, guys, just give her the win. She's got to get something. She's such a cool character. I don't think we could have this award ceremony without giving her something. So just let her have it. Let her have it, all right? Fastest close combat expert. Now this is an interesting one. Quickest to get into close combat without infiltration / impersonation, while also having the best chance to win a face-to-face roll. So, thing about Shinobu and about Aljabel and about all these people is that after they've killed their target, there might be other stuff elsewhere on the board, which is going to take a while to get there. And orders are a real thing. So what they've got to do is they've got to re-camo and they've got to sort of spend their smoke grenades and they've got to walk over there and they just might not have enough orders to even do it. If you can imagine a situation where the entire table is just one big Eclipse grenade and nobody can actually do any shooting, well, close combat would be the only way to get kills, wouldn't it? Or cyber attacks, hacking, that kind of thing. But discounting that, who would be the best at moving around and actually winning all the face-to-face rolls and getting the kills? And I'm pretty sure you guys know who I'm talking about now. It's got to be Yojimbo, the Mercenary Sword. This guy is so cool that I feel like I had to come up with a category for him. I'd have to sort of tell you about one thing that he does really well. And it's just a shame not to include him because, again, this is another guy who has martial arts level 3, or 4 even, and has CC 24. So when we talk about best duelist, most destructive, this guy's like top 10. He's making top 10 of every different category. He's a nominee for every category. And he just still hasn't won anything because everybody else has done it better than him. But he is the fastest in terms of raw speed getting across the table and being amazing in close combat. There's nobody else who comes close. Even Penthesilea, who's really good at it, she's only got the eye-call ability, which is crappy compared to martial arts level 4. So Yojimbo takes it out for sure. Best CC tag, and finally we're getting towards the end of the night. It's getting a bit gimmicky, it's getting a bit trivial. I thought I'd include this one just because there might be some new players out there who are like, oh, I wonder who the best tag is. And you look at the Guija and you see his massive sword and you're like, it's gotta be that guy, look at his sword. He just take a whole city block apart by swinging that sword. But he's actually one of the worst tags, unfortunately, in general, and you know, he's no good in close combat compared to anybody who is good at close combat. One nominee for this category would be the Sphinx, because the Sphinx can impose surprise attack on you, and when it does hit you, it's got an explosive CC weapon. But even though this guy's close, he doesn't quite clinch the prize, because there's only one tag that you can give this to. There's only one. There's only one. It has to be the Oyurai. And this guy gets it because he's got martial arts level 1 and he's got the explosive close combat weapon. And he's got enough armor and structure points to tank you. I mean, even if the Sphinx comes in against this guy, the Sphinx will probably win the first round because of surprise attack. But that explosive onto his body armor is not going to get rid of him because he's got all those structure points, he's got tons of armor. And as soon as he survives the first round, he's got a big advantage against the Sphinx after that because of martial arts level 1. So it's much more likely to be the Oyurai in the long run. If you had a gladiatorial sort of thing of all the tags, or if you compared them based on all the other criteria, it's probably going to be this guy. So let's just give him the prize. Alright, we're nearly there. Finally, we've got the booby prize. We've got the joke category. We've got the one where we just flip it on its head and we decide, well, who's the worst in close combat in the game? Because this can be answered a bit more simply. This isn't really a matter of circumstance. This is genuinely the worst. Unless you're talking about worst compared to points or something like that. Worst CC in the game. Lowest non-zero chance to win F2F. And I had to sneak in that non-zero chance because you might tell me, well, there's a net rod which has a CC stat of 0. That's not a trooper. It's not a model. It's not something that can participate in a face-to-face role. So we're talking about models that can, but who fails the hardest at it when they have to. You may also point out that there are a lot of losers here who sort of come in last equal because of the ability Electric Pulse, right? So there's so many little remotes and things which aren't very good at close combat, but because of Electric Pulse, they're actually better at surviving against Aljabel and Shinobu and all of that, because their dice roll counts as a 7, and they stop you from using your mods, and if they win, they stun you, and haha, they didn't die. We're going to ignore that because we're talking about winning face-to-face rolls, and I want you to imagine that your nominee for this category, your nominee, and I know all of you guys have been sort of thinking about who you give the award to before I reveal the winner. I'm sure that a lot of people will be posting. I can hear the keyboard warriors right now posting in my YouTube comment section about like how Joan of Arc got robbed, or freaking McMurray. McMurray's so freaking good. Like, damn, he's good in close combat. He's got Phys 16. He's got the Templar weapon. Didn't win any awards. But anyway, we're coming to lowest non-zero chance to win face-to-face. Try and imagine that your nominee is your only model left. And unfortunately, it's in base-to-base contact with an enemy Fusilier. And in order to win the game, you have to kill that Fusilier in combat. You have to kill him. You can't stun him, you must kill him. Because if you do kill him, he won't count as 10 points towards the particular quadrant that you're in, and you're going to lose the game of Supremacy or whatever you're playing, or Safe Area, or whatever it's going to be. So you have to declare a close combat attack against that Fusilier. I can't remember whether my prize winner has it or not, has close combat attack or not, but you have to make an attack with your CC stat and whatever abilities you have, and you have to beat him. So what model would have the least chance of doing that? The absolute lowest. I mean, you give this job to anybody else in this award ceremony, Musashi, Shinobu, the Oyurai, anybody at all, and they've got like a 99% chance of killing this Fusilier. Like, something like that. It's close to 100%. In fact, probably the least chance would be the Oyuroi, and even then he's probably looking at 70-80% chance of just wrecking this guy. So who is it? It is the Unidron. Now, I must admit, I spent all of like 20 seconds researching Army 6 to find the lowest CC stat, and I probably got it wrong. Please comment on the comment section if you can find somebody who's worse than this guy, but unless I'm incorrect, I'm pretty sure that his CC stat was a meager 5 only. Yes, he's got an Electric Pulse. You should always use the Electric Pulse unless you, for some reason, have to kill them. But the CC stat of 5 is the absolute meme of bad close combat Infinity. And there you go, CC 5. He's an absolute shocker. Well, guys, I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I had presenting it. We're going to be resuming normal Infinity content very soon. Hope you had a good time. Hope you don't flame me too hard in the comments. Have a good night.